Welcome to the Leadership and Yoga Podcast, hosted by me, Shawna Krueger. And on this podcast, I'll be bringing you interviews with exceptional leaders in the yoga world alongside trainings and tips so you can experience true breakthroughs and help others do the same. I am here to take you on a journey. It's going to be magical. It's going to be inspirational. Are you in? Today's episode, I'm really excited because this is the topic that I've spoken on recently, and it's something that I feel extremely passionate about. And the topic is that your dreams that you have are made for people like you. And really what we're going to get into today is we're going to talk about life, we're going to talk about business, impact, health, happiness, all of these things. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I didn't have an aligned friend or even, friend group, let alone even one friend who felt the way that I felt about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to build, and was trying to cultivate the beliefs that I had at the time. And that's not to say I didn't have people around me who weren't wonderful, incredible people who I love dearly and still do. But at the same time, when you're trying to go somewhere and you don't have anyone else on that path with you, it can feel really, really lonely. And so I'm here to bring you all of the different things that came to my mind this morning as I was writing out this overview and really sat outside and contemplated this and thought about what can I share that's actually meaningful and it's not just more noise filling up this space. So yeah, I feel like there's a sense that we get when it comes to our dreams and our wildest dreams, our biggest, most ambitious dreams, whether or not you do dream of becoming an entrepreneur or you just dream of getting the job that, you've seen somebody who you're inspired by get that job and you just think, how can I do it? I want to do it too. But there's this sense of almost helplessness that I feel like we get. It's like we get really hung up on, am I the right fit? Is this for me? Am I cut out for it? Do I have the right resources? Before we even let ourselves consider and truly get into the state of asking these kind of questions that we hear that we're supposed to ask, which is the what if. What if I made it? What if I did it? What if I started that thing? What if it took off? What if I changed my life? What if I decided right now that the next time I get up, the next time you get up from listening to this podcast, or you get out of the car, you stop your workout, that you will change your life. And we never even let ourselves get there because we have this sense of helplessness. And it's funny because the other night I woke up, I guess it was the morning, it wasn't the middle of the night. I woke up to my alarm, which was, around 6:30 that day. And I could hear the sound of my alarm. And it's common for me that if I sleep weird, my arms will go to sleep. So this I have experienced before. But when I woke up for my alarm going off, I immediately noticed that just my hands were asleep because I was sleeping on my stomach in a terrible position that I would never recommend that one chooses to sleep. But for whatever reason, I had my hands tucked in and crossed over and just my hands were asleep. So I go and I reach for my phone and I can move my arms. It's not one of those cases where your arm is just like swinging helplessly, which is also really scary. And I hate that feeling. But just my hands were asleep. And it was the weirdest thing because I'm like trying to grab onto my phone and I can't. So then I'm like trying to use my elbow to turn off the alarm because I hate the sound of the alarm going off for over and over. And it was just the most frustrating thing. So then I had to sit there listening to the alarm and just like barely bringing that energy back into my hands, like the blood circulation starting to come back. And then it was enough where I could like actually reach down, grab my phone and turn off the alarm. But that's not to say, and this is such a silly example, but in this little story, we have hands. We are capable of going after the things that we want. Our hands just might be asleep. Our hands really might be asleep. They might be totally offline. We might not even realize how simple the thing that we're making out in our head to be the most difficult start and the most difficult process in the world actually is, when we can just awaken these parts of ourselves that are lying dormant, essentially. So here's what's on the menu for today's podcast. And actually, before we get to the menu, I have our little announcements because I sponsor my own podcast. I was actually asked this in my podcast Launchpad program. How is it that I'm able to keep my podcasts advertisement free? And in a sense, I guess they're foreign advertisement free, but my own ones are here. So I appreciate you listening to this part and supporting me, because if there's one thing that I learned when you're in the process of building your own things and you're in your process of developing your dreams and establishing your vision, and you see other people's vision around you that you say, yeah, I can get behind that. I support that. I want something similar. Pouring your energy into supporting those people is immensely beneficial. I swear to you, it comes back around. At least I believe, in my opinion, it does come back around. That's what I have experienced. But we have our cohort 2 of Podcast Launchpad coming back, and that is going to kick off in February. So that link is live and completely ready to go at the time that this podcast will be released, which is tomorrow, because as per always, I record the day before I release. Keep it fresh. Got to keep me on my toes a little bit. Sometimes that ends up not playing out so great, but I love the spontaneity of recording right before. So that is live. What is also happening is leadership and yoga in real life. This vision is essentially something that I marked down as a moonshot goal. And so I will tell you a bit about it, because I know that we're talking about moonshots here. And so this is something that I texted to a mentor of mine probably early fall, and I'd actually never heard back from him for a couple of months. And in the meantime, I started to think more and more about this moonshot goal, and I started to contemplate it and sort of unlock it and really think about, how would this actually look? How would this happen? And by the time that he texted me back, I think last week, I told him, this is great, because his message said, this is not a moonshot goal. This is something that you can do anytime. Like, I believe in you. You can do this. Make this happen. This is not a far out thing for you. And I texted him back and I said, you're exactly right, because I already have all 3 speakers lined up, and I have a place and I have a date. So the date is going to be May 8th through 12th. The speakers I'm going to leave as a surprise, but if you would like information on joining us live to hear keynotes from some of our most popular episodes on the Leadership and Yoga podcast, and to get into a group of like-minded people, and to get a little bit of leadership training as well, we're going to bring in a leadership trainer, one of my best friends, and it's going to be a really special experience. So I will direct you to just adding your name to that information list. So that way, when I reveal the speakers and I open up the spots, you will be the first to know about it, because we are bringing these other speakers in. There are only 25 spots, and we're expecting those to go quite quickly. What's up next in my little announcements here? Oh, this is the final one. Please rate and review my podcast. If you're a listener, you've probably heard me say this 10,000 times. Not really, actually like 127 times to be specific. But please do it. If you haven't already done it, this is so helpful to me. If you can drop me a rating. And I know that not all of you have rated the podcast, because I can see that the number of people listening per month is massive compared to the dwarf number of people who have taken a chance to rate that. So please do it. Just scroll down. It's really easy to find. You can also do it whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, whether you're listening on Spotify, or wherever you are listening to my podcast. Now, what is on the menu for today's episode? My biggest sparks of inspiration is really what I'm bringing you. And I'm going to also have some get real strictness in terms of mindset shifts and what you are doing with your time in your life in general, which might sound scary, but I promise it's not. I'm not here to attack anyone. Really just pointing out my own blind spots and seeing if perhaps you resonate with them as well. Questions to help you find clarity. This is a really good one. That's very valuable when people ask you valuable questions. Keep those who ask you valuable questions very close in your life. Don't just ask you about the weather and mundane things and drama and what other people are doing. because those people that ask you the questions that help you improve are incredibly valuable. And finally, we'll end with 2 tangible steps so that you do not leave the site of your dreams without making a move towards them. Sound good? Well, sounds good to me. So let's do it. Inspiration. I believe that on your road to following your dreams, and I say your road to following your dreams because even though in my example, I quit my job, my corporate job, well, my law firm job that I had almost 2.5 years ago, I don't believe that one moment was the moment where I said, yes, I am enrolled in myself. I am following my dreams. I know I can do it. Here we go. Switched it on, following my dreams. Isn't it amazing? I'm on that, living my dreams, living my best life. No, not at all. You're going to have to come back to following your dreams over and over and over again. You're going to have to remind yourself why it is that you're here in order to keep showing up. You'll have to remind yourself and find ways to remind yourself that it is possible. It is in fact possible. And it is in fact probably not going to look like what you imagined. That's just the nature of the game. I want you to start by considering what it would feel like in the moment before making a quantum leap towards one of your wildest dreams. And you may not know what your wildest dreams are. You may not have a clear vision right now. That's okay. But imagine just something that would make you really excited. Just use anything as an example. I don't care if that's a number of dollar signs in your bank account, if that's a physical thing, it's a thing that you say is an ego-related thing that you shouldn't actually really want. I don't care. Use one of those things that would make you excited. What would be the moment? Like imagine you're about to get that thing tomorrow. What would the day before feel like? What would right now feel like? Would you know it? Would you be excited for it? Maybe you say, well, I could feel it coming even if I wasn't exactly sure that it was going to happen. For me, as I was contemplating this moment before a quantum leap, because I really am obsessed with quantum leaps, I believe that pretty much all of the progress that I've made has been in the form of quantum leaps. It's really not a linear process, especially in the entrepreneurship world and especially with these big, lofty goals. There's the moments where you're kind of chipping away at it, but all of that, if you were to just do that forever, you'd be pretty flatlined. The real power is in understanding when can we make these massive breakthroughs. And so I was contemplating what a quantum leap looks like for me and what it feels like the moment before it. Because I've had several quantum leaps in the last couple months, to be honest with you. And what I realized that it feels like to me is when you're going up a roller coaster and you know that you're going up really high and you don't know because you're not in the front seat. I do not believe we're fully in the front seat on a lot of these things. And you can only see the other people up in front of you, the other carts up in front of you, and they're going higher and higher. And you don't know exactly when that moment where you're going to go over the edge is coming, but you're starting to get the anticipation and you're like, holy shit, can I actually handle this? Like this drop is going to feel crazy. This is going to be insane momentum. What is going to happen? I can't even see. I feel like I kind of want to get out, but now I really sure as hell cannot get out because I am strapped in. I am fully committed. And you're just looking around and you're going up higher and higher. And it's really this moment that I think precedes the quantum leap. And that moment can go on for a really long time, sometimes a frustrating amount of time. But then eventually it happens and you go up over the cusp of the hill. And from there, it's more speed, more momentum. It feels like you're flying, you know? It gives you that feeling in your stomach of absolute adrenaline. And when you get off the roller coaster, usually you'll say that was scary. But sometimes if you're like me, I don't know, raise your hand if this is you. I get off, and if the line's not too long, I run all the way back around and I do it again. And I think our life is kind of like that in a lot of sense with our dreams. It's not like we are just preparing for this one moment, for our one roller coaster ride, and then we're done. It's over and over and over again. And as you go, you'll see that you advance from the kiddie rides up into the bigger rides and the bigger rides and the bigger rides. And I know that this is kind of a rant on rides. I truly do love roller coasters, if you cannot already sense that. I love them, but I also am terrified of them. But this is really about not restraining and limiting yourself. It's to see what's really possible for you. And to live a life that's unrestrained is to unlock things that you didn't even know were there. So don't feel selfish when we talk about following your dreams, because you may say, well, I have responsibilities. There are people who are suffering more than me. There are ways that I should be serving that I'm not. What am I really going to be serving with following these dreams that I have? Because at the end of the day, if those dreams are real and those dreams are true, they're going to be more of service to humanity than anything else that you do. Because that's your gift, that's your offering to the world. So I want you to see that this whole process and the joy of the ride of the roller coaster is not just for you and your own enjoyment. It's for what that symbolizes and what energy that ride gives you that you're able to take back into your world, into your ripple effect. And I've shared this a couple of times in the early days of this podcast, but all of us have at least 1,000 people within 3 degrees of us. So 3 degrees could be degree number 1, you to your friend. Degree number 2, your friend to your friend's coworker. Degree number 3, your friend to your friend's coworker to that coworker's partner. That's 3 degrees. And that's how our influence and our inspiration travels. So it's a ripple effect. It all comes back to its point of origin, right? Let's talk about mindset shifts to actually make it happen. And hopefully at this point, you're feeling a little bit inspired and you can feel a little bit of what those butterflies of going over the drop feel like. And if you've never been on a roller coaster before, even better, because now hopefully you have the slight desire to figure out a way to try your first roller coaster, essentially, whether that's a theoretical, symbolic roller coaster or it's a real one. By the way, I am having to use my right hand for all my hand gestures if you are watching the video, because here to my left, I have this new cactus that I'm really excited about. Maybe we need a name, because when I told everybody on Instagram that he was my new marketing director, they were telling me that he looks like a prick and making a bunch of cactus jokes. So maybe we can name the marketing director for leadership and yoga, which, by the way, means it's actually secretly me. And yes, I'm doing everything, so be nice if you don't like my marketing. But I'm just kidding. I have been tuning in a lot to seeing cactuses all around me, because that thing of when we focus on something, we start to see it everywhere. And a friend of mine inside of our mastermind group, which I'm going to talk to you about, because this is the first time in my life that I've finally found a group of friends that we can have a mastermind with. And it's a really impactful thing. After one of the calls, he said, I am so excited I could eat a cactus. It's kind of like, I'm so excited I could run through a wall, you could do anything, that sort of a vibe. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out, that's why I have this cactus here with the little yellow hat. Everything's on brand. Mug is on brand. See, I got this mug from the Goodwill. It was made in Germany. It's a good find as well. Anyways, back to the point. Strict mindset shifts and time management and really evaluation of how you're living your life in general. Let's roll up our sleeves. This is sort of the meat and potatoes, tofu and veggies of the podcast in general. Rule number 1, write this down or remember it. Stop reinforcing beliefs and problems that you actually don't want. I do not care if it's socially normal, or if you just want to fit in, or you feel like it's a habit, or you feel like it's just the way you are, just the way your mom is, just the way your family is, and that's why you are the way you are. And that's why you're talking about these things that you actually don't want to be talking about or you don't want to happen to you, but you're just feeding into the drama and the cycle of it all, because none of that is true. I mean, read Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Open nearly any self-discovery book, and you will find that you, yes, you, are creating your personality, your lived reality, and so many other things. And I can tell you this from experience, as annoying as it may seem, but I enjoyed hearing other people tell me this when I was starting to awaken and want to change my life as well, that 4 years ago, I was not the same person that I am today. I literally was not the same person. I had different traits, different personality. And yes, there are certain things that absolutely stay true and have been there since the beginning and probably will be. But those are things that I enjoy. And I have selected to say, yes, this is something I want to continue. But it's fascinating to me how we get so busy living our lives that we stop realizing that we can plan our lives, and not in the sense of like, this is when I'm going to have kids and this is when I'm going to buy a house and all that. I would challenge you and say that's probably not helping you live your life. That's like creating a to-do list out of your life, which is very different than planning out and saying, hey, I want to be a kind of person who in the morning they wake up and they feel inspired and they have a sense of joy in the smallest things, and they're just a happy person, and they're someone that has a bright smile and bright eyes, and people around them feel love. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I met someone also recently who told me that he used Joe Dispenza's manifestation techniques to manifest working for a particular content creator here in Austin. And he would visualize it, picture, he could see his desk and how all the things would be. And then, lo and behold, now he's working where he wanted to be for that particular content creator. And the best part of it is, now he's gotten to meet Joe Dispenza in real life because this content creator was interviewing him. And he got to tell him that basically, hey, you changed my life, as I'm sure Joe Dispenza has a line of people. There's probably a continuous pouring of messages to Joe Dispenza about, you've changed my life. At least that's how I imagine it. But that's pretty cool. So what we are looking for, we will find. That is one of my favorite rules. What you are looking for, you will find. If you are looking for feeling disappointed or reasons to be sad, or the fact that your coworkers annoy you, you will find exactly that. If you go in looking for a day that allows you to have a few moments of peace, you're much more likely to find that moment of peace. And if you look hard enough, I'm sure you can actually find it and realize, hey, it was already here all along. I just wasn't paying attention to it. So try to make it one day, just one day, without repeating your limiting beliefs or excuses or letting yourself dwell in a dark place or a place that you don't really want to be. You can think about this almost like weight training or resistance training, where it's like, just make it one day. You get in the moment where somebody wants to talk about something negative in a terrible spiral you don't want to go down. Don't engage, or tell them, be honest with them. Hey, I'm not talking about these kind of things today. I'm doing an experiment. If you feel yourself sinking down into the sulking lows of lows, just make yourself get up and go on a walk and focus on something else and say, tomorrow you can revisit this, but right now I'm not doing this today. And once you can make it, maybe it's just for an hour, maybe it's for 10 minutes, right? Try to make it without reinforcing those beliefs, and it'll start to bring your awareness to all of that that's already going on in your mind and in your life, and what you're being exposed to, even the kinds of movies, the kinds of television, the kinds of content that you may be consuming that you're not even aware of. And so when we talk about awareness of these things, you may say, well, first we need to be aware and then we can start to focus on all this. And I will agree with you. And I think one of the best ways that we can gain awareness around this is to get around other people who also have a dream or who are wanting to go where you want to go. And this is the most complex of all of it, because you'll find that a lot of those people feel a little bit out of reach. They may feel like they don't want to engage with you because obviously you may be grasping for them. You may come off as desperate or something like that. So I'm not talking about needing to find people who are at the highest version of themselves. They're 10 to 100 steps ahead of you and you're idolizing them. No, I just mean to seek out and put out into the world, hey, I want to have other friends who maybe they haven't already built their business, but they're dreaming of building a business, and they're also saying it's possible. They're not saying that it's super hard, because this is something that happened to me when I was first getting started, maybe even about 2 years ago when I got serious about building my business. I was running into other people who were having the desire, the longing to build something, to grow on social media, to do whatever it was. But I found that because a lot of them hadn't made it yet, quote unquote, there was this rhetoric of it's so hard. We're just a few years too late. We're just XYZ thing. It's harder for us for that reason. And honestly, I started running for the hills when I heard that kind of stuff, because I was like, this shit is contagious and I'm not catching it. I'm not buying it, because I already have that in me and I don't need it to be amplified through you. And I certainly don't want us to sit and stew over it together and create a bonfire out of this little thing that should be stamped out so that we can just move on and figure it out. But you are essentially like water, I would say. And I love the idea or the analogy or the metaphor. I'm actually not entirely sure. I need to go back to 11th grade English and understand better, or maybe elementary English, what is the difference between a metaphor and an analogy. But this idea that we are water and we're like tea. So we're steeping different things into the essence of the water that is us. And all of those things are just flavoring. So we start to believe that which we consume. We start to like that which is familiar. And all of this is because of the inputs of the people around us often. And those may not be people in real life. That could also be people in media and stories that you've heard and this and that. So just keep that in mind and understand at any moment you can take out the tea bag that's there. And yes, you may say, well, my water is flavored like this right now. Yeah, but put some other stuff in it. Fix it. It's going to get better. Don't worry. Side note, definitely notice who comes running when you start to do well and when you start to take off. Without fail, every time I interview someone that I'm like, ooh, this is a dream person to interview, maybe in your case to be like, oh, you get a dream client or you have some success and you share about it. Without fail, I will get a DM back from somebody who I reached out to when I was in Seattle, and they ignored me and left me hanging and didn't get back to my messages or my emails. And then they're like, hi, oh my gosh. All the time. This happens all the time. And I don't mean to be rude with that, because I get it, I understand that we've all got a limited amount of time and resources. But just know, and I wouldn't necessarily say no to those people, but just realize that this is going to happen, and notice and do not forget about the people who were there the whole time, lifting you up and already carrying you, already putting in that hard work, essentially. So in addition to this, when we talk about sharing our success, I think this is a big one when it comes to what it takes to really follow your dreams and to understand that your dreams are for you. I absolutely recommend celebrating your wins and There's a time that you should tell no one. Tell no one. This should be rule number 2. Honestly, it's a big one. Don't reveal your dreams to those who have less than ideal intentions for you. And unfortunately, in the big, wide net that something like social media casts, there will be people who are not rooting for you, but also who can't look away, maybe because of jealousy, maybe because of interest, maybe because they're like, what in the actual hell are you doing? I think I've got a lot of those from high school tuning in, especially in the early days, like, what is she doing? What is she doing with her life? Like, let's see what's going to happen here. Is this going to work, or is this going to crash and burn? Time will tell. So when you're being strategic about what you share, there's a certain element of like, screw it. If you're feeling like this is going to happen, there's no turning back, then for sure. I mean, share what you want to share. Don't feel restricted. But with something like the case of the interview that I just had with David Swenson, who is somebody who is extremely inspiring to me, somebody who is a dream invite, a dream guest to have on this podcast. I so badly wanted to tell people, because I also wanted to ask, what questions do you have for him and all these other things. But I decided, no, you know what? This is something that I don't expect. I didn't expect him to say yes. I never expect people to necessarily say yes. And I want to protect the energy of this encounter. And I just don't want other people's excitement or fear or thoughts on the situation. I just want to save that for the people that I know have my back and I know I can trust, essentially. So that's what I'll say on that. And really, in terms of time management and how you're spending your life in general, my other final point here on getting clear on some mindset shifts that you can bring about in your life when you're seeking your dreams is to know that you can evaluate what you are doing that you consider to be normal. And at the same time, even though it may be normal, you don't need to be doing it. So what are you doing that's normal, that's expected, that you should be doing, that you actually don't need to be doing? This one is huge because, yes, while it is normal to go out, for example, this is a big one for me. It is normal to go out on the weekends and to do things. Now, some days I do like to go out and do things. I don't like going out. Like, I'm not going out to the bars or anything like that anymore, really. But some weekends I also enjoy staying at home the entire day. I like to stay up late on a Saturday night brainstorming things. That's fun for me. And I don't need to do the normal things. I don't need to go to a Christmas themed paint and sip event because I don't want to. So what are the things that you're doing just to stay social, to stay normal, to be whatever version of a human you think, or like to be a contributing member of society? What are you doing? And get critical of those things and look at them. Some of them you may not be able to drop if they're responsibilities, but you may be able to adjust them accordingly. With what you spend your time on and your habits, I love something that on the subject of cactus, this is something that my friend Brandon said, and he also said this, by the way, in his interview. If you want to go back and look at the interview that I have with Brandon, it's really fantastic. But he says that you have a certain amount of water. Oh, this also goes with what I said, that you are water, right? And you have a bunch of plants. Let's say I have like only this cup of water right here, and I have all these plants around me. And if I just give them each a little teeny drop of that water, because I don't have a lot left in here, none of them are going to be thriving. They're all going to be sort of shriveled. Well, the cactus is going to be thriving, so we'll just ignore that part of the example. But everything that's a leafy plant is going to be kind of just shriveling. If we want something to truly flourish, if we want a dream to truly flourish, what Brandon said is so true. You've got to dedicate your resources to that one thing and let everything else kind of get put on the back burner, and trust that later on down the road, you can revive it if you need to. Because generally speaking, You can revive plants, even when they're super neglected. So use your resources to see something fully blossom, and don't just basically spread yourself so thin that you're not seeing any growth in any direction. Let's get into questions to find clarity. It is super fun to put together the pieces of other people's stories in retrospect. I think this is why we love watching things. Like, did you guys watch the Martha Stewart documentary? You should watch it if you haven't. It's very interesting, and I'll talk about it more in just a moment when we talk about reinventing yourself. But we love to hear how people discovered their talent, when their music took off, when they got that amazing job that's so interesting, you wonder, how did they even hear about it? And at the same time, we find a difficulty in accepting and confirming our own story. We can look at our own life like a scavenger hunt, honestly. And you can look with almost like a detective, sort of, in a fun way, a playful way, not an obsessive way, or an obsessive way if that's helpful for you, but a playful way of being a detective and seeing, okay, what is it that I'm doing that I'm actually quite good at, that I enjoy, that other people are commenting about, other people are affirming as well, or what do I just feel like deep down I'd be pretty good at? One of them for me, to give you an example of how this can show up in a super non-traditional way, nowadays I have retreats and I'm on my 4th retreat now. And I remember that earlier on, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine literally came to Miami to stay with us in this Airbnb that we were staying at because she so loved the way that I captured all of the details of me, touching a flower and getting you really up close to it and filming my mornings. And I was just doing all this for fun, really. There were not that many people watching, but I was basically imitating a style of content that I enjoyed consuming, and I wanted to create it as well. And she loved it so much, and I, of course, invited her, that she booked a last-minute plane ticket for the next day and came down and spend time with us. And I think about stuff like that and how easily I could overlook that. But at the same time, in retrospect, right, I'm able to see, hey, now I actually do similar things with my content creation for my retreats, for my different programs. And this is actually something that I am good at, that I am able to bring people there with me. Another example of this that maybe will spark something in you as well is that in high school, I did this thing, and I don't even know how this got started at this point, but I would literally make pancakes for people during lunch 1 day a week. And this went on for quite a while. It would sometimes fizzle out and we'd bring it back, but I would bring to school a griddle, like one of those plug it into the wall, flat, hot plates. We would make the pancake batter using water from the bathroom. That's nasty, right? Using that water. And we would also have like cooked up sausages or eggs and had it in a bag, which is like 100% not food safe probably. And we would cook the pancakes fresh though, on the griddle, on the lunchroom table. Like imagine it's in the middle of just a big lunchroom, and then there's us there, me and a couple friends, cooking pancakes. There's no ventilation. I mean, it's like a whole, I don't even know, probably nowadays, that makes me sound like I'm, this was 20 years ago. It's not. This was 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. But we would cook all these pancakes, and what I realized thinking about why I like to do things like that is because I like to surprise people. I like to do kind of the odd things. I like to make the weird things trendy or cool. I like that waking or shaking people out of their routine. And so I can see these sort of patterns begin to emerge in myself. And I know you can probably see your patterns start to emerge as well. And yes, even though the lunch ladies had literally no idea what to do with us, and I think they looked somewhat disapproving at the situation, but also they kind of smiled, and you can't really look away. It's just, this is weird, you know? But making people feel alive and like anything is possible is a keynote that I would pull from that situation. So look into your own life and see kind of what are those situations, these different things that you're doing, these funny stories. What are some of your favorite stories of all time? And start to dig them up, because if you don't give them attention and if you don't pay attention to them, you think that you don't have any. But I promise that you do. You do deep down. And also know that you can reinvent yourself. I mean, the Martha Stewart documentary is the perfect example of this. She reinvents herself so many times, even after the whole going to jail. And I'm not going to give the spoilers because it's not at all what I thought happened. I actually always thought that she was guilty of insider trading, and I didn't know I did not see what was happening. But even after that, she reinvents herself, getting on Comedy Central, and now creates content with Snoop Dogg. I mean, who would have thought? And she was also the oldest cover model for Sports Illustrated, I believe, because she took a thirst trap selfie in the pool. So you can reinvent yourself. You are not locked into a box of like whatever you've done up until this point. The next question to consider is going to have to wait for an intermission, because I have had an unexpected situation come up. And so when you see me continue this podcast, it's going to be probably a lot darker. All right. See you soon. Okay, I'm back. I am actually a crazy person, because I just walked to teach and thought about what I was going to teach on the way there, taught a class, and then walked in the door, took off my shoes, and kept recording because I am so afraid of losing this train of thought and this stream of consciousness that I am on right now with this topic. And speaking of being afraid of forgetting things, by the way, on the way in, and I'm not a dog owner, so if you're a dog owner, I guess you know better than me, but I saw this guy picking up poop from his dogs. And well, I'm also on a streak for mentioning poop in my podcast, like the last 3 in a row. But I saw this guy picking up his dog's poop, putting it in bags, and then putting it into the inside pocket of his jacket. And I was like, what if you forget to take that out when you get home? Because I could see how that could totally happen. I forget things in my pocket all the time. And then what if you accidentally like washed the jacket or like found it a month later? I don't even know. Anyways, that is besides the point. But I didn't want to lose this train of thought that I had and this energy that I had. And honestly, this fits in perfectly with my next point. That is, ask yourself the clarifying question of, if not now, then when? If not now, then when? This was a question that I found extremely motivating to get my shit together and to actually start working on the things I wanted to work on, because I couldn't come up with a better answer of when the more, perfect time was going to be if it wasn't now, because there's always going to be reasons and excuses that we put on ourselves. Just like I could have literally given the excuse today that I didn't have time to record because I literally do not have a chunk of an hour long time that I can do uninterrupted today. So I'll spare you from the rest of what I'm doing for the rest of my day. But I knew that this was probably going to happen, especially because I had an unexpected interruption that completely made it so that I had to divide this up. And I've actually never, ever split my podcast in this way. But if not now, then when? Identify the excuses of why now is not a good time, and understand that there is no clearing in the future where everything is going to be ideal, everything is going to be perfect. And then you have the time, the money, the resources, the energy, the health to go after what it is that you really want to go after. One of my favorite wake-up calls I ever received was when somebody told me that if you don't start on this now, 5 years from now, you're still going to be 5 years older. So yes, while it could sound really crazy to have to dedicate 5 years to get something off the ground for your dream, maybe even more, 5 years from now, you're still going to be 5 years older. And those are 5 years that you could have been working on developing this thing that you really wanted to do. The other question is, if not me, then who? If not me, then who? And start to understand what the traits are of others that you think are wiser or more qualified for your dream. What are the aspects of these other people that make you say, okay, they could do something like this, but I couldn't? Because as you start to get clarity around that, I think you'll find that actually, if you can spot it in others, you've got it yourself. That's this disco ball theory. It's essentially that what you're looking at and what you perceive and what you judge in others is actually a reflection of a billion different pieces of you and who you are and what you think about yourself. So I challenge you, and I'll also tell you that you have to be enrolled in yourself before you can enroll others. You absolutely must be enrolled in yourself and your value in order for other people to see that in you as well. And that's not the point, really, to get other people. That sounds almost like a utilitarian sort of take on start loving yourself so that others will love your content and then you'll blow up and get Insta famous. That's not that's not at all what I'm trying to say. But among this sort of thinking and on this pathway towards being enrolled in yourself, I mean, what does it really mean to be enrolled in yourself when you go after your dreams? For me, it meant not hiding from myself anymore, not avoiding the angles of myself that I don't like or the shadows of myself that I don't like, and actually starting to accept all of it. And acceptance is really kind of a spiritual springtime, because from acceptance, then anything is possible. That's when the doors open for change. And also sometimes you realize you don't actually need to change it anymore. I mean this on a super superficial level of even the angles of myself and my face that I used to not like, that now I realize, or when I look at myself, like, oh, this makes my face look more iconic because this is easily recognizable. This is unique. This is something about me that not everybody has. And I start to look at it with that lens. And you can find a lot of joy in that. And you can also find a lot of joy in just not taking it as seriously. If you don't like certain aspects of the way that you currently are, and maybe you can or you can't change them, what does it really matter at the end of the day? I mean, we're here playing in this human body. It's a freaking miracle, you know? So at the end of the day, what does it really matter if we can't adjust everything to absolute perfection? It's not even about that. And that's also the most beautiful part about having a dream and a bigger vision, is that it gives you less time to fixate and focus on these little things that are really only about you. And we'll talk about this issue of, why do I actually have this dream, or why do I have the desires that I have, that I want to manifest into this world? But establishing what it is about yourself that you can accept, that you can love more, and also establishing just the openness of feelings, of understanding what it is that you like and you don't like, and being like, yeah, that's how I feel right now. Okay. And now what? But when you look at why you actually have a particular dream, I do this all the time. And I think it's good to have the honest conversation with yourself and say, what part of me wants this for an ego reason, to show people like, haha, screw you. Look at that. You said I couldn't. I did. Like, I made it. You know, I think we hear a lot of that kind of rhetoric and that kind of argument and statements being made in different music. And it's a really big influence for sure into motivating people to get shit done, because they say success is the best revenge, right? But what other part of you can you find that wants a desire, wants a dream, wants a goal for a service-based reason? And I got really clear with myself when I started to work on creating the podcast Launchpad and understanding why it was that I was so in love with this process of podcasting and why it was that I was so thrilled and so excited, right? When I saw that my podcast was in the top 5% of video Spotify podcasts this year, when I saw that my podcast was in the top 5% of video podcasts on Spotify, I was thrilled. And yes, there's a part of me that feels like, I did it. Look at me. This is great. I put in a lot of work. I've spent a lot of time on this. I really put my heart into this. But there's also a part of me that just wants to show people, look, if I could do it, you can too. And there's a part of me that's always wanted to show you that your dreams are not for the people that you believe are better than you or more elite. You don't need to be in the popular kids club. If you're a woman, you don't need to have perfect skin. You don't need to be perfectly put together, perfectly perfect, like Martha Stewart was talking about. And honestly, to illustrate that fact for you today, I show up thinking a lot more in my podcast about the energy that I want to bring rather than how I look. And I do not have makeup on right now. Like I said, I literally just ran out of a sweaty class, and I promise I will shower. I will do that right after this. But it is so not as important as you think, that kind of stuff, as it is just getting to your mission, getting to the heart of your mission. This even goes back, how everything goes back to childhood. I feel like one of my childhood wounds is that I secretly wanted to be popular, honestly. And in a way, it's not that I wasn't popular. I just was never part of the popular kids, like the elite popular kids circle, right? I would have felt so out of place walking over to that lunch table and taking a seat with those people. And now I think that's hilarious because it wouldn't even bother me. And at the time, I was over cooking pancakes, doing something equally as cool. But there was a part of me I know that always was like, that's not for people like me. It's not for people who look like me, for people who date the kind of people like I do. Like they're in this whole other arena, essentially. And that is so not true. It is so not true. And so much of that still stays with us in our adult life. It may be that you don't feel like you are able to talk to the executives at work, or in my case, the attorneys, because I don't want to waste their time because I'm a peasant compared to them. I mean, I literally had those kind of beliefs. And of course, when you walk around with the secret belief that you're a peasant compared to other people, well, people are much more likely to treat you like that. And it's just kind of a self-fulfilling cycle. So there's a fine line between looking at what it is that you want to create in the world and just loving it for loving it, and also being controlled by the obsession of it. There's a beautiful story inside of the book Women Who Run with the Wolves, which I'm still reading, by the way, and I'm absolutely loving it, and I highly recommend it to you. But there's a story in there about red shoes, and this little girl who she loves her red shoes so much, and she's basically not allowed to wear them because she was wearing them to church and basically got in trouble because what are you doing wearing red shoes at church? Like, you need to be wearing black shoes, like basically fit into the form, get with the program here. And she keeps secretly just putting on the red shoes. And finally, the woman who adopted her takes the red shoes and she puts them up very high on the shelf and says, like, no more, like, you are too obsessed with these. This is not okay. And the whole time I'm just sitting there rooting for the girl. I'm like, oh, she's got to get the shoes. Like, she loves them. When she puts the shoes on, she can't help but dance. She dances with joy. She just is absolutely out of control in love, essentially, with the red shoes. It's like an infatuation with the shoes. And when she sneaks the red shoes down from the shelf, she puts them on. And at this point in the story, it becomes apparent to the little girl that she's loving the dancing and everything, but there's a problem because suddenly she realizes that she wants to dance to the right and the shoes are dancing her to the left. She wants to go back to the house and the shoes are dancing her into the forest. And essentially at this point, it becomes evident that she is no longer in control and that the shoes are carrying her and it's not her driving the energy and the joy of the dance anymore. And I hope that that makes sense. You've got to read it for yourself. It'll be even better. And I haven't read what the author is going to essentially say the message of the story is. I literally just read this last night. But I really like this here when we talk about the dream aspect, because you will start to notice when it's not fun anymore. And there's an element of discipline that's required. There's an element of difficulty in the beginning that absolutely must be faced. But if you notice that this thing is carrying you in a direction that you do not want to go, you will notice it. And don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself like we just talked about. Another really cool one to, if you're looking for other materials to continue to inspire you, because like I said, you're going to need to be reminded more than just this 1 hour long podcast that I'm creating for you. Watch the Claus movie. Like Claus, like think like Santa Claus, but with a K. This thing, you will not be disappointed. It's a holiday movie. It's probably the best movie I've watched all year. It's a cartoon, and it basically has this message that says, a true selfless act always sparks another. It is absolutely heartwarming to look and see how one big act of will and basically one person's dream, even though it doesn't start out as selfless as you may think, actually leads him into a cycle of generosity and a cycle that is extremely healing for the whole community. It's deeply symbolic of everything that we're talking about today. So I wanted to put that little nugget in there before we get to the homework and to the wrap-up section of this podcast. All right. The moment that you may have been waiting for. The 2 actionable steps so that you do not leave the side of a goal without making a move towards it. So first and foremost, again, if you do not feel like you have ultimate clarity on what it is that you're working towards, I know that in this episode, I'm speaking to the idea that perhaps you already have a dream. And I just want to say it again, that even if you don't have a big dream right now, think of something that might just be a little bit better than what you're experiencing right now, and use that as your dream and your example for these tasks that I'm going to give you. When I think about my own work towards my dreams and everything that I'm building in my business and my life, I feel that I will always have the sensation perhaps that I haven't made it. And that's not to say that I don't meet my goals and I don't get places that really excite me, but I know that there's a reason that I haven't hit some of these vanity marks and these sort of like things that seem like they would be low-hanging fruit for somebody who's dedicated 2 years of their life now to their business. When we feel like we haven't made it, it's because we're meant for more. And there's a part of us that maybe would have gotten complacent if we would have hit that goal initially. And what we're actually meant to do is to grow and to expand and to be much more than that. And with this in mind, understand too that your goalpost is going to move. Once you get a little bit closer, you're going to want to put it further away. And I am saying this as a reminder to myself as well. Don't keep moving the goalpost on yourself. Let yourself hit some major goals and get excited about that. And yes, always keep in mind that there's that next mark, there's that next level for you. And we're always before completion. I really believe that we are always before completion in anything that we do. And even look at the interview that I just did with David Swenson that I released earlier this week, he gets all the way through the entire Ashtanga series. He learns all the poses, he does all the things, and then at the end he's like, well, no, I don't have the answer still. Like, surely this must have been the thing that I was going for. This is it, you know? And it leads him on this crazy quest where he ends up doing everything from only eating grapes for 40 days to becoming a Hare Krishna and still searching for the meaning and eventually coming back to his asana practice. Again, it's like understanding that general sense that I think he says this as well at the end of the episode, that a really good answer should bring you 3 more questions. And that's just kind of the nature of life and making peace with that. So I will tell you that it took me 2 years to reach my first major podcasting goalpost. And I wouldn't even be very honest with myself about what this first goalpost was going to be. It was very easy for me to come up with these big, lofty goals and much harder for me to set something that was reasonable because it felt like it was not as grand, not as exciting. And I think there's a secret part of me that's like, well, you could actually do that and you could actually make that happen. And if you don't hit it, you don't have any excuses. So I'm going to ask you right now to set the practical goalpost for your dream that you are afraid to set, perhaps because it seems too low or doesn't seem important enough, and it actually seems like it's reasonable enough that you can hit it. You can absolutely hit it. I like to think about myself like an investor when I'm thinking about investing my time, literally. It's what we're all doing. And we know that there's this concept of high risk, high reward. So there's a high risk in this big, lofty unknown. You know, somebody is saying that they've got this incredible, brilliant business idea. Maybe it's you, and you're like, by next year, I'm going to have this off the ground product is going to be flying out the door. It's going to be amazing. I would say, wow, that's really high risk because there's a big chance you have no proof of concept that doesn't happen. But if it does happen, holy shit, that's going to be amazing. That's going to be really exciting. So you want to think like a good investor would do. And they would say, well, I want something that is exciting to me. I do want a little bit of risk in there. I want it to be a stretch, but I also don't want to lose all my money. I don't want to lose all my time, right? So what is a goal that I can set as I invest my time that is a good investment, that makes sense for who I am and for what I know to be true about myself at this point in time? So you may say like, oh, well, I don't want to baby myself. I want to make a change. You know, I want to become a new person. Great, you will. But that doesn't have to happen in the first moment that you hit your very first goal ever. So think about this for a moment and set yourself that goal. If you have the big, lofty vision, what is a goal that you know that you can hit? And as I pause to let you think on that for a moment, I also want to tell you that I'm not suggesting that you don't dream big. I'm suggesting you dream big and you set your goalposts accordingly and let yourself arrive to those. And there's something that I took down in my notes from a live transmission from Richard Rudd that I also shared online. And what he says, and this is not word for word, but this is what I captured from the essence of it. He says, you know, you become sensible, you become reasonable, you become respectable. Stop that. Become a believer again. Believe in yourself. Believe in the power of magic. Believe in the power of grace. Believe in things beyond yourself. You'll transmit that everywhere you go. You have to expand your view of what is possible. You have to open your mind right up. So your second piece of homework and your second actionable step is going to be kind of like the counterpart to this goal that you have just set, the reasonable goal that you've just set. And I want you to have a magic moment today, not tomorrow, not the next day, not figured out, planned in next week sometime, today. Even if it's evening when you're listening to this, doesn't matter. Take a moment to have a magic moment. Light a candle, take a moment to really tune in, open a plain blank page, draw, write, do whatever, rewrite a quote that inspires you. Take 15 minutes, that's all I'm asking you to do. 15 minutes to exist beyond the rational and the reasonable and the trap of the problems and the worries that you currently have. Let yourself be more than all of that for 15 minutes. And eventually, this action of dreaming, essentially, this is the literal moment where dreams are created and where you're actually able to allow yourself a space to sit face to face with your wildest dreams, and not even wildest dreams in the sense of building a business, but just like the presence of being a human. That's a pretty wild dream when we think about it. We all are trying to do 100,000 different things to get to just that same goal of remembering why we're here and what it really feels like to be here. And this presence and this ability to dream eventually starts to spread a little bit further and a little bit further. Maybe you do it in the morning and suddenly the morning spills into the rest of your day. And then those days form a part of your week. And then suddenly that part of your week forms the whole week. And that week turns into your months and your years, and your life becomes just a bit more flavored with this presence. And so I'll give you an example of what I do when I give myself these so-called magic moments. Is I have a blank journal, a journal with no lines, nothing in it. And I have a rule that I only write in that journal about things that inspire me. And sometimes I don't write, sometimes I draw, sometimes I paint something, sometimes I rewrite quotes. And even if I'm not feeling that inspired, that's when I will pull from what other people have said that inspires me. It's not like I'm there only to be a creator. I'm there to amplify inspiration and dreams in my life in any form that may show up. And that is what I call my inspiration book. And I got it in Colombia a few years ago, in maybe 2021. And I still have it. It's probably only like halfway full still, because again, it's not that I'm pouring creative ideas and to-do lists and daily use of this thing. I'm using it as a space intentionally to dream and to say yes to myself. So that's my example, and that's what I'm going to leave you with today. I'm also going to leave you with one final thing that I wrote in my journal that is not particularly profound, but it's what I wrote for today, and I like to share what's kind of going on in my mind behind the scenes, and it's related to this topic as well. It says, "Life is so much to embrace, and yet we do. We lean into the sticker bushes on a late summer day to reach for a blackberry. We look into the eye of the storm and we choose it anyway. We have our way of continuing. We forge a path, or we fall. But even in our fall, we will still forge a path." Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. And the emoji for today's episode is going to be the cactus. You can leave the cactus emoji on my latest post on Instagram or in the comments section here on Spotify. Have a wonderful rest of your day, your evening, your morning, and I'll catch you next time. Ciao, ciao. If you enjoyed this episode of the Leadership in Yoga podcast, please take a moment to drop me a rating and subscribe. Also, if you're able to share this podcast with the world, it is greatly appreciated. Thank you.